listening as a background.
The kind of chemicals that start to move through your body.
But listening like a meditation.
Even, are much more tonic-oriented than toxic-oriented.
Frequency plus intent equals healing.
And you drop down into what we call a very deep state of meditation.
This kind of health-promoting strategy, much like meditation, this is an active form of meditation.
Music has really been an essential part of how I get through my day.
Transformational inner experiences.
Re-enchanting of the world in the real sense.
Sound actually shows up as one of the universal pathways.
That the music and sound do have the power to heal.
I'm Christine Stevens. I'm a board-certified music therapist and a master's level social worker. So I call myself an overeducated drummer. Basically, about 12 years ago, I founded a company I call Upbeat Drum Circles. We do drum circles for healing, for music therapy, for training healthcare professionals, and also for corporations. Primarily, our goal is enlivening people in body, mind, and spirit through rhythm. I've also worked for 5 years at Remo Drum Company, the world's largest drum company. They're based in Valencia, California. And in that capacity, I was the director of their new market development related to health rhythms, which is their medical program using drumming.
So how does health rhythms and the work that you're doing increase people's health?
Great question. The interesting thing about drumming is that everyone can do it. You know, it's as simple as when I usually say to people, I'm testing your rhythmical reflex. People usually go, bum, bum. It's just natural. And it doesn't take a lot of effort or work to know how to do this. So what I'm really excited about is that drumming is accessible. There are some health-promoting strategies out there that are not possible for every person. So we're really looking for what can grab everyone's participation. One of the key elements of health is participation. You have to take an active role in your own health and well-being. We're trying to move away from the idea of the pill fixing me and the things that are costly. You know, we're living in a medical crisis right now. The cost of healthcare, the cost of prescription drugs, all of this can be prevented. What we found in our research, and this was a study initially done and published in 2001 in the Journal of Alternative Medicine, and it was done by Dr. Barry Bittman, who's a neurologist, and he heads up the Meadville Medical Center. And he basically went to a drum circle at a medical conference, and he was powerfully moved by it, and he was inspired to study it. And what we found, and we tested 5 different types of drumming: drum circle, we also tested shamanic drumming, we tested what we called impact drumming, we tested a listening condition, a control group. What we found is that it took a specific protocol of steps that led people to comfortably play the drum. Because when they had performance anxiety, it actually suppresses the immune system. So the key was having a protocol that's empowering and builds group support. The result was phenomenal. It was the first time we were able to show biological improvement in the immune system on a cellular level. So cellular biology was changed by 1 hour of group drumming, according to the Health Rhythms protocol. One of the important results from that study was, and we took blood samples pre and post 1 hour of group drumming according to our protocol. And what was really interesting was that natural killer cell activity, NK cells, which are circulating white blood cells that seek out and destroy cancer and virus cells, significantly increased in the participants who drummed in the protocol compared to the listening and control group. So this was pretty exciting because NK cell activity is a very deep biological marker of reversing the stress response, boosting the immune system. We all need it. We all need to strengthen our immune system. What we found in the protocol was that the key was integrating other health-promoting strategies, not just drumming. You know, what's powerful about this kind of work is it's not about the drum. It's a tool to have an outcome. So when we wove together visualization, exercise, you know, it's a physical activity when you drum. We wove in spirituality, group support, humor. We found it was very important to help people laugh at themselves, and for us as facilitators to laugh at ourselves first, to put them at ease. Those kind of health promoting strategies are part of the composite element of that protocol using drumming. Well, I like to say that I work with a lot of very difficult clients, including corporations. Not just drug and alcohol patients and resistant clients. I used to work in foster care, and I've really been in the trenches of music therapy in my life for 15 years. And what's exciting to me now is to go into the field of wellness. And wellness is defined as an active pursuit of health. And so this is more than relieving symptoms. This is about preventive medicine. This is about daily practices that reduce stress before things get out of hand, that we need to go to the hospital and have a tragic situation. In corporate America, it's specifically about team building, communication, and bonding. We find that right now there's a very diverse workforce. We have young people from the Generation Y working with older people, baby boomers are retiring, and we even have diverse language differences. Well, this is a language, that everyone speaks. Everybody's heartbeat rhythm, we can all play that together. It's a language that everyone speaks. So when we go into corporations, we use similar things as in hospital settings. We want to loosen people up, have icebreakers, bring them to be able to communicate with their drum. We do games like call and response, where I play something and the whole group echoes it back to me. And so in that situation, you're listening, following, there's leadership. All the activities that corporations are trying to achieve in their teams can be practiced through the drums. And what I find is that people they come into the drum circle, especially in corporations, and we all might have a stereotype of how resistant people can be to this. They're kind of like sitting like this. This is going to be stupid. Basically, no one wants to make a fool of themselves. And so after the hour, what happens is people are transformed, transcending that barrier of, oh, I don't have rhythm, I'm not musical. They find that everyone has a beat, and they've come together as a group. And they leave energized, enlivened, and connected without words, looking at each other, remembering the rhythms that they've played. And what we were excited about was in our research, we showed that it has a lasting result. In fact, 62% of improvement in mood on the PALMS profile of mood states was achieved through the 1-hour group drumming session 6 weeks consecutively in a corporation, which was a long-term care setting. We were also able to show that it reduced burnout. Now, that's a very costly issue to corporations. So now what we're bringing in is that there's a cost-effective element of drumming. There's a cost-effective element of sound healing in general. It is a small investment considering the fabulous results you get. And lastly, we were able to show with an economic reviewer that the drum program saved $89,000 annually based on a 100-bed hospital because of employee retention and reducing turnover. So what I think is really significant is not only is this an activity that people can use as a group team building, and also clearly support and group bonding is a key element of healing, but also individually. And I've been really interested in looking at empowering people to use the drum not as practicing music, but to reverse that as a musical practice. So every day I actually start my day drumming. And I'll play one of the rhythms from the Healing Drum Kit, or I'll just play the heartbeat rhythm. And I put together 3 elements. One is intention, which is very important in healing outcomes. Second is the posture or position of holding the drum. And third is the rhythm I play. So the heartbeat rhythm, I hold the drum so that the vibration is coming towards my heart. And I might drum the heartbeat rhythm and make an intention that all day I'm going to listen to my heart today. And what I found in my focus group research is it takes 4 minutes for people to fall into rhythm. You see, a lot of times we give up. After a minute or two, I can't play the beat. We have to wait and feel it and fall in. And so I play for a minimum of 4 minutes with intention, with a conscious holding of my drum to match that intention, and with a rhythm that begins with a heartbeat and then expands to something more like what I'm feeling. And come back to a closing. I do that in groups as well, but I think it's also a very valuable personal way of staying in rhythm, in harmony throughout the day. Much like meditation, this is an active form of meditation, and people can do it. Even children, ADHD clients, fall into the rhythm. People that have Alzheimer's fall into the rhythm. This drum, the tool of rhythm, is something that is contagious. You know, we can't close our ears. We receive it, and we are inspired to participate. Well, I think that most recently, I've been to many disaster situations with drumming. Columbine High School, Ground Zero. Also most recently New Orleans, where I stayed in the FEMA trailer park in St. Bernard Parish for 7 days. And I felt like an on-call music therapist. I really had no idea what to expect when I went there. What I found was, in just walking around with my drum, my guitar, and my flute, making an offering to people. Can I play something that would cheer you up today? Can I help in any way? Or I would play my guitar and I'd hand them a drum and say, play along if you choose. It's very powerful to engage participation. You know, listening to music feels great, but when we're talking about the healing benefits, what we found in our studies is it really requires participation. So what I found in New Orleans that was really amazing was one young boy who was 11 years old really loved the drums. You know, and here's a kid who's totally relocated from his home environment. They're living in a trailer. They go to school. There's not even classrooms yet. They're just sitting in these desks. It's makeshift kind of situation in a gym. And I went to his school with him, and we drummed together with the other students at the school. And the teacher said it was the first time they had seen kids smiling. And I thought it also impacted the teachers. It gave them energy that it restored something. And so when I tell people about that experience in New Orleans, I say, like building and rebuilding with construction, music rebuilds the soul. It really does. And it restores relationships. So later that evening, that young man, who's 11 years old, dragged his parents to the drum circle in the trailer park. And his father said, I'll just come and see what you're doing. And he stayed for an hour. And he didn't want to stop. And he had the drum like this, and he was having a blast. And he said, wow, it's the fastest hour that's ever gone by. I feel like I'm just waiting for the day to get out of this trailer park, and that time just went by. So I think that those are the elements of how this can work for prisons, gangs, all kind of applications where we know that people are out of connection with their soul and with one another in a healthy way. It restores right relationship. When you give people a drum, you hand them their power. You empower them to make a choice. What do I choose to play? What's the sound that is me? It seems like a mask. You know, people think they're hiding behind their drum, but it's incredibly revealing of how we are feeling. One of the techniques we use in health rhythms is we ask a question, and we ask people to answer on the drum. So we might ask, how do you feel about this 1-year anniversary of Katrina coming up? And people would answer on their drum. And one woman did this. She held her drum like a child, and she played. And she said it represented wanting to give security to her children. And what she felt was really hard about the anniversary was she could see the impact in her children's behavior. We saw a lot of regression, you know, bedwetting and sucking of thumbs and things like that. And she said, I just wanted to give them a sense of security. And this is what she played. When it comes to treating cancer patients or medical patients, I think it's very important that the individual doing the treatment be some kind of a certified therapist. You know, there's no such thing as a drum therapist, essentially. But people like myself who have a background in music therapy, or they have a background in social work or nursing, some of these kind of things, or if you're a musician, you team up with a healthcare professional. So what we found when we worked with Bernie Siegel and Dr. Bittman's group, Exceptional Cancer Patients, ECAP, when we took it to the retreats, we used the drumming for couples because it was either couples or family members. So someone will come in for cancer treatment and they bring their spouse or their care supporter, you might say, their supporter. So we would actually have the drum between them and they would play together. And the goal was to build support and empathy and that unspoken ability to say, I'm here with you in this rhythm. And we also ask people those questions, how do you feel about your cancer? Say something about your cancer that you haven't said yet on your drum. So it's also for self-expression. Basically, what we find across the board in medical settings is that there's 7 key health-promoting strategies that are woven into the drum circle in terms of the health rhythms protocol. The first thing is exercise, it's physical. Second thing is spirituality. The third thing is camaraderie and support. And that's really important because sometimes our experiences of music are not supportive. So we're in a supportive environment. Fourthly is self-expression. So it's not about you learning a specific drum beat from a piece of paper or counting 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, or going like this, which I can never really do very well. It's about your soul's expression on the drum. And fifth, it's also about music making. You know, we found in our research that music making does boost the immune system. Now, we were looking for ways to empower people to be part of music. It's very hard to take people who've never played an instrument before and hand them violins and ask them to participate. The drum is so basic and primal. And another thing that actually really creates some of the healing applications of drumming is that when we take people and we ask them to drum, we're creating a relaxation experience. And number 7 is stress reduction. As we found in our research, on a biological level, this reduces stress. You take patients who are facing cancer or pretty much any medical condition today, the number 1 concern is feeling like they're not in control. When you hand someone a drum, it's their choice, what they do, how they play. So you're empowering them to make a choice. And the number 2 thing that is healing in all the research is a sense of support. And that's why I think the drumming is so powerful in reducing some of the symptoms and empowering people to have their best possible outcome of their treatment in cancer. We believe in integrative medicine. This is not a standalone cure. This is something that is woven into a protocol of other health-promoting strategies, healing strategies for therapy for people facing health challenges. Well, I consider myself a very fortunate messenger of something that is really old. It's interesting that we now finally, since 2001, have medical biological research documenting the power of drumming. But when you think about it, this is something that the ancestors knew and practiced since, as Mickey Hart says in his books, probably 40,000 years ago. You know, people were drumming or they were using rattles and shakers. And this is probably one of the oldest instruments known to humanity. It's so multicultural. And I have traveled to Japan, Brazil, Hong Kong, Taiwan. I've been to South Africa, Namibia. And what I find in all the places that I go, and even here in our United States where we have the American Indians, is that the drum is a tradition across different places. So when I went to Africa, I could speak to people. They really understood me when I played drum with them. It's an international passport, this instrument. And because it has such roots, I really do think that the drum is being called into our consciousness today to reconnect us. It is the world's language. And I believe we need to start speaking to each other more from the heart. Peace through music. People often ask me, what's a healing rhythm? We can certainly know that certain parameters of tempo match heartbeat parameters. And because what we know with entrainment is that we generally start to entrain with a rhythm, maybe even on a biological level, to where the heartbeat may be changing because of that rhythm. Externally, we connect to that rhythm. However, I would say that the number 1 rhythm that I find always relaxes people is the heartbeat. Well, entrainment is defined as synchronization of 2 different oscillators. It is the coming together of 2 rhythms. And it really is from Christian Huygens' studies in 1635 looking at pendulums. And over time, pendulums synchronized. Now we see lots of examples of physiological entrainment. Women who are working together for a long period of time, their menstrual cycles actually will sometimes synchronize. We see synchronization when people are walking, geese flying. There's a lot of examples of it. When it comes to rhythm, it is that a strong rhythm, we will just fall into it. We will follow the beat easily. The only thing that blocks entrainment is too much thinking. That is why drumming gets us out of our mind and into our heart. So, you know, the number 1 place that people make music is in their car. The number one place that people make music is in their car and in their shower. You know, these two places. Certainly what I find is people love playing their dashboard drumming. And when I'm on the airplane, I will see people unconsciously, I call it creatunity. They're unconsciously creative music makers. You know, they're just tapping. They don't know it, but they're waiting in a line and they're tapping a beat. So when you really think about it, the body is the first rhythmical instrument we all have. We are instruments. We are walking, talking, ticking, talking polyrhythms. We are. And so what's great about rhythm is you don't really need anything to do it. I mean, if you just become conscious of it, you already are. You know, some of the greatest instruments from the Aboriginals in Australia is these sticks that they hit on the ground and that clap with. So I think that everyone should own a drum. I really do. I would like to see, like Babatunde Olatunji said, every home, a drum in every home. Then we will see a change in America. We'll see a change in the world. A lot of places in the world, they do already have a drum in every home. But here, we would like to have that goal. This is a wisdom that has been known for centuries, and we're just being able to remember it today. So I don't feel at all that I'm part of some new idea. I'm really lucky to be part of a tradition that is so ancient and would be referred to as drum medicine. This is really medicine in many indigenous perspectives. I study with Lakota teachers, and doing ceremonies with them with the drum, there's such a reverence to the drum, and they really deeply see the meaning that this is a circle, this is a hoop, this is the sacred hoop of life. You know, and that, as Arthur Hall says, the drum is like us. It's a skin stretched over a shell. And so I think that as we have our heart beating, as we drum, as we connect to the rhythm, that can unite all people. We'll begin to really heal not only ourselves, but our diverse population of the world and our planet. I'm a music therapist and master's level social worker. And so that is our Health Rhythms team, and Alyssa Janney, who's the manager at Remo Drum Company. It's visionary that a drum company wanted to fund this kind of research. And the interesting reason is Remo Belli, who's the owner of Remo Drum Company, his wife is Dr. Ami Belli, and she's a holistic doctor. So he's been homeschooled all his life, and it gave him an interest in documenting why drums work. And so that's really what caused Health Rhythms and the research to happen. And now it's a training program, and we've had 4 studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals to date.
Okay, in the 15 or 16 years that we've been studying the relationship of music and rhythm to the human condition, I've been very fascinated on the growth of the interest that there is in using rhythm, using drums in particular, to reach that goal, so to speak, of I think we live in a world of hurt, and I think this is one of the approaches that we can use to alleviate a lot of the difficult things that we have to deal with. From my observations, I believe that 25% of any given population is going to get involved in the use of music and rhythm and so on and so forth for their well-being. They'll accept the idea, which means in the United States there will be approximately 75 million people that will be involved. And of that 75 million, about 50 million, 55 million will certainly be involved with the drum, certainly be involved with rhythm. So when I translate this into world terms, it's not difficult to imagine the amount of drums that will be used and the amount of people that will be involved with the use of rhythm to do any of the life enhancement programs that they're going to want to and need to do. Never mind, I think that this has evolved into a need, and I don't think it's no longer a hobby. I think we're going from important to essential is where I think the path is that I can see. Okay.
What was your motivation for supporting this recent project, taking recreational drumming to Iraq for conflict resolution and leadership training?
Well, for me, it works. for me, it's no longer a doubt that if it's going to work, and I do know it works. And I've seen it globally because we're a global company and we get there. And so there's no question in my mind that the whole idea of drum and drumming, etc., it has more depth in all cultures than I thought it did. So taking something like this to Iraq, where there's severe hurt going on at this time, I see it as a very interesting form of easing the pain, so to speak. That the whole idea in the use of the drum, or the use of music in general, has affected or has gained a lot of acknowledgement and approval by the general population. And the drum, from our experiences and your experiences, and I've watched you work quite a bit, take in people that have no knowledge of one another, have never seen one another, and so on and so forth. I think probably the drum is probably one of the more unifying things that there are. If you were to describe a thing, it just so happens that we're in the drum kind of world, but it's interesting for me to now recognize how it does unify. It's something that's been most recent for me that I've seen the depth of it. And so I don't think this is something that's going to go away. Just the other day I was in Las Vegas on a meeting, and I was able to take a frame drum and the cell phone. And it's easy to see that these were the communications. This is what they communicated with, and this is what we're communicating with now. And to think that I'm making the same thing they communicated with 5,000 years ago against this thing that's current now, and how this thing is still viable. So it's very interesting for me to see the viability of the relationship.
Right.
And one has no danger, while the other one can be. It's not demonstrated yet that it's that safe.
And also it speaks to the drum because it has not been replaced.
Yes, that's the interesting
voice
part about it.
continues.
Yes, the only thing that's happened, some of the materials have changed.
Thanks to you, very much so. Well, thank you.
No.
How did you get started in this yourself?
Well, I'm a drummer. I'm an addict. I've been addicted to drums for, let me see, I've been a drummer 68 years. I'm 81, and I've been a drummer for 68 years, and so it's not a problem now. My evolution from an interest in drums, and then I worked, I earned a living for 18 years professionally. Then I went into business, and for some strange reason, I still don't know to this day why I went into business, but I went into business. And I learned that I could do business.
Now you're sharing it with the whole world.
Well, it's just opportune, and it's kind of serendipity, because it's nothing that I ever imagined was going to happen. And I think there's a lot of situations like that, that this has gathered its own momentum. And this is something that's been going on for more than 25, 30 years or so, where I think most things publicly that achieve position, like rock and roll, so to speak, why? What was there about it that that it could gain the position that it gained in doing what it's doing? And I think all popular movements are like that. We were just talking about it now, rap and things of this nature here. Hey, I'm fascinated with what makes things happen. And so when we talk about the drum and the reuse of the drum, so to speak, I guess it's supposed to happen, and it's moving in that direction. It's almost what Christine and I talk about, the tipping point, so to speak. We're almost at that tipping point.
Did it start out, did you have the concept of healing and health, or has that evolved more recently, the health rhythms and that those programs?
My relationship is that my wife is a physician, and we've been in holistic and they call it, they have another name for it now, integrative medicine, yes. And so I go to a lot of medical meetings, and so I've been privileged to meet some very, very, very good and talented research people and speakers and so on and so forth. So it wasn't a big effort for me to realize that perhaps what we were making relates to that. And when I was, the moving point for me was to when I was introduced to the whole subject of music therapy, and when I first met Christine, and when I was able to observe what they were doing and how they were doing and why they were doing, I realized this was an interesting thing that had to be better known. And so it is. It's now the whole idea of music therapy is...
So you supported the research and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
You know, you were really the first company to hire a music therapist in the music products industry, and the first company to launch an evidence-based division called Health Rhythms that brought a neurologist and a doctor as their advisory board. So it's much more, you know, and the music therapists actually consult with us to develop the product. So we're actually more concerned about not just the drum for the rock and roll player on the stage. We want to know, how does this support the the therapy of someone with disabilities? How does this help an occupational therapist, a music therapist? So a lot of the instruments are created with that in mind as well.
So music medically, now that I speak to a lot of people in the medical profession, both allopathic and so on and so forth, there's nothing negative. I hear almost no negative voice at all that says, don't use it, it's not going to work. None. So I think this is the one modality in the caregiving business, in the caregiving world, that is acceptable by everyone.
Thank you, Remo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I understand that last November you invited a team to come and teach drum circles, not for drumming or for performing, but actually for conflict resolution, leadership training, youth empowerment, and economic development. And I wanted to ask you, what gave you the idea that drumming could help people in northern Iraq?
Back in the early 90s, I went to a drum circle at a NAMM show in Anaheim. And there are a few hundred people in that circle. It was my first circle and my last experience, but it lasted for over a decade. And
you never forgot that feeling.
I never forgot that feeling. And I was looking for peace-building activities. When we talk conflict resolution, many people think of negotiations, mediation, arbitration. But the drum has dialogue and it has activity. And it's a form of communication and it's a form of healing. And most conflicts are coming from inner pain as well as external pain. We can see the injuries when somebody is hurt with an IED, which is a explosive device. We can see the leg amputated. But inside also the spirit and the mind is in deep pain. The drums have a vibration that I found back in the early 90s, 1991, that seemed to heal and to provide energy, positive energy. And so what I did, starting about 4 years ago, was study it in an Islamic context. Would it be allowed to have drums, as music is not always, entertainment is not considered allowed in the more traditional Islamic communities.
Sure, I can imagine. So you were checking if there was any religious like resistance or that it would be violating some cultural norm.
Yes,
Is that right?
And when the drums in the Quran and the Al Sunnah would be, when they talk about drums, when it would be appropriate. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said at certain times, maybe at a wedding or for healing purposes. If it's for medicine, then it's good. So to go from the text, I went to religious scholars and imams, and I asked many of them, and I still continue to ask them, to open up discussion on healing. In Iraq, there's several groups that use just the daf, which is allowed, and some kettle drums. And their premise is also for healing. So
Right.
it was an all-go. I talked to many very traditional conservative religious leaders, and they, after discussing it and discussing the energy and the vibration and how it heals the blood pressure and the enzymes and stress, and conflict causes stress and high blood pressure, that yes, this can be done, and they're very interested.
So going back to what you said about peacemaking, exactly, can you define what peacemaking is as compared to conflict resolution and why the drum is good for peacemaking?
Yes.
You could look this way a little bit.
Okay.
Look towards us.
Conflict resolution or conflict mitigation, which is even a bigger umbrella, has several different sections or themes, and one is mediation or negotiation, which we mainly get from business. You hear about negotiations in business. There are other areas of conflict resolution, so if you think of it as an umbrella and tentacles coming out, peace building and dialogue are two other areas which are not as concentrated on. In the media, many times they say dialogue, or you hear people these leaders going into dialogue, but what they're actually doing is going into negotiation. And so I'm
fascinating.
Very grassroots. I want something that's not academic. I want something that's practical, and that the grassroots, the regular people, can take it and do it. And it's like the commercial, just do it and experience, because we learn more from experience.
Absolutely. And I understand there's a lot of language barriers in Iraq. I mean, the people that you have the training spoke Kurdish, Sorani dialect, they spoke Arabic. And what was the result of using the drum as a language, as a common language for people that can't necessarily speak to each other in words?
For the first hour, there was no speaking. It was totally drumming. And then at that point, we opened up with English to Kurdish to Arabic. And as a result of that, at one point in the 5-day training, we wanted to separate the groups, right? And the Kurdish speakers and the Arabic speakers, and they refused to separate from each other. And so the bond was there, regardless of language, barriers, or anything else. The bond between the people were there. It was there and very strong.
What do you think made that bond?
It was the drum. It was the common language of the drum. And it was the healing. It was beginning the healing from the first hour through the days. And they would not stop. After the training, they would be on the bus or be in the hotel, and they kept going with the drumming.
Even without a drum?
Even without a drum, tapping on the leg.
It's hard to believe that people, these 38 people, could experience such a level of unity when you consider that they are from groups that would be enemies.
Yes.
I wonder what created that.
We picked a variety of people. We picked people from, one focus was on rehabilitation centers, therapists from rehabilitation centers, from 6 to 7 governance. So automatically we're looking at different people in different governance, concentrating on physical therapy. And the second was the youth, and also government officials participated, and then community groups, representatives. So each government in Iraq, there's 18 governments, and we work with 7 of them.
Wow.
Each has its own personality, and within the government are subgroups. And so we had an application. What we did want to make sure of for people attending is that they had a sincere interest in using drum circles for their community and for their organization or rehabilitation center, so that it would have a sustainability.
And tell us what's happening now. Like, what did you hear after the training finished? On the front lines, what was the scoop?
The first person was most traditional Muslim, and he went out the next day to an orphanage and did drum circles with orphans near Baghdad. They did it in homes because they cannot even cross the street without being at risk. They did it in homes with children.
Oh, goodness.
So that was a start. The other was Kurdistan Save the Children, working with children's centers and youth centers, and also the rehabilitation centers in northern Iraq are using that for physical therapy and also to relieve stress.
And I understand you recently did a drum circle with your staff and had to do with the women empowerment.
Yes. I noticed in the first drum circle that the women, they were drumming, but they were not drumming as enthusiastically as the men. So I said that evening, the next day, we were going to have a women's only drum circle. And we took both men and women staff to beautiful waterfalls, very lush. And we sat on a large patio, and around 3 tables sat 21 women. And they really got empowered, and it took an hour, and after 30 minutes, they were more confident and very proud, and their faces were glowing. And at that point, after an hour, we gave it over to the men. We let the men use the drums, who equally, they saw what the women did, and they equally wanted that experience. And so they did another hour of drumming on their own. So.
And what has drum and drumming and facilitating drum circles done for you personally as a person who's working on the front lines in Iraq?
I see such a huge change, and in a place where there's a lot of conflict, and something that you might build, a school, may be blown up the next day, and it has. To see the change within people. And it doesn't take much money. It takes drums and it takes people. It doesn't take electric. It doesn't take water. It doesn't take a hospital building. It just takes people and a drum and a desire to heal, and the desire to feel life again and to have hope again. And so that's, for me personally, that's, to see that. I've done 250 projects, and this project was the most important project, the most impact, because it affected people's spirits.
I'm just going to add to that. You're done. Good job.
That was fabulous. Yeah, if you want to say.
I think that the significance of this project is it's just a first step in a trend that we're seeing. This was an international relief organization requesting a music-based intervention, not to perform or entertain, but to change the culture, to support the healing process of cross-cultural activities, of cross-tribal activities, religion. And I do see that music is the language of global diplomacy. That for a world that is looking at peacemaking techniques, music, sound, especially the rhythm, because the drum is so multicultural, the drum is so accessible, it's a great access point for all people, that I do see that this is going to be a tool for global healing, global conversations, peacemaking. I think also the significance is that when we analyze this and we ask the participants to give us an evaluation, they rated it highly enjoyable. So, I mean, we brought together people who could be enemies, And they actually enjoyed these 5 days together. People didn't want to end at the closing sessions. They didn't want to stop. There was a lot of emotion, even in a culture where you're not supposed to show emotion. I think for me, it's the biggest music therapy project I've ever done in my life. There was a lot of fear going into a war zone. We get a certain image of Iraq from our media. And once we walked through that image and let it go, what we met was the most generous, spirited people. And we didn't teach them anything. Really, we offered them this art form that allows space for everyone's own rhythm within a collective group. And what they showed us was some of their own traditional music. In fact, they wanted to share with us, this is the music of our people. Here's an Arab dance. Here's a Kurdish dance. They wanted to share that with us. So I don't think it's that the drum circle is the only piece of this puzzle. It was a combination of two things, cultural sharing and collaboration. Cultural sharing meaning, we'll show you one of our songs. Please listen, we'll perform for you one of our songs. We'll share it. It was shared in an intention of join us, not sit still and watch. Come join us. And after each group got the chance to share and connect with each other's art form and language and musicality, then collectively we collaborated on new things. And I think that's the key to peacemaking, is the action, the collective action, the collaborative action of forming a mutually created art form in the moment, in the now, that serves the needs of that group. Okay. That's gorgeous. Look around the room while you do this. 1, 2, all together.
Hi, my name is Arthur Hull, and I've been around a long, long time. So I'm considered somewhat as an elder in my community. Some people call me the father of the facilitated drum circle movement. In actuality, I'm more like a midwife, pioneer, not really a father. Here's the deal, okay? When a group of people come together and play drums and percussion, they create in that group a vibration, not just in the moment music, but a kinesthetic vibration that goes to the places inside themselves that need it the most. Like water seeking its own level, like the river flows into the ocean. That vibration will bypass any circuitry or circumvent any circuitry that's not working and go to the ones that are. It doesn't matter if it's a kinesthetic body or if it's emotional or if it's intellectual, mental. It doesn't matter. Drumming does that. It creates in those people a release of some sort of emotional stress, physical stress, mental stress. Doesn't matter. So, story. There's so many. I'll pick that one. Hold it. Input. I'm in Taipei, okay, Republic of China. I've done a training there. The training's over with. The lady, one of the people who is in the training says, "Come to my school. Come to my school and entertain my children. They are mentally challenged." And I said, "I'd be glad to come to your school. Tell me how many children you have, and so I can gather up all the drums I need to facilitate that group of children." And she goes, No, I'm sorry. You don't understand. They're mentally challenged. They can't play. They can't play. They can't pay attention. very long at all. We expect you to entertain them for maybe 10 minutes. You come, bring your drum. And I said, I'll be glad to come to your school, and I'd be glad to entertain your children under the condition that you allow me to bring all the drums I need to play with them and so that they can play with me. And I went, okay, but I am apologizing ahead of time for the success you're not going to have. In Asia culture, they're very circumspect about all of this stuff. And so on the drive over there, with all of the equipment in the van, her and her boss kept on apologizing ahead of time for the disappointment that I was about to receive, so on and so forth. So I get there, and there are 12, 14 children, ages from 5 to 12. Each one of them has a caretaker. They're sitting in a circle. I asked them to place them in a circle, and I put all the instruments in the middle of the circle. Okay? I wasn't going to do a kids program with mentally challenged children. Okay? I did play the drum and demonstrate and just get the boom, 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 and get those nice, funny little animal sounds out of it, and it got their attention. Except for one little lady, the only one we lost. She ran away. She, ah! Nah, they went after her, took care of her. But all the rest of the kids were going, ooh, what's this? And I would play with the kids like I'd play with any other kid, and I would almost hand them an instrument, not quite, and almost, and then they'd grab it out of my hand. And we began to do simple little calls and response. I go, bam, 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 bam. And some of them would go bam, 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 and some of them go bam, bam, bam. It doesn't matter. Okay, it was not a program. Okay, and slowly but surely, the group started doing calls and responses. Okay, and just with that alone, we started playing patterns and drumming together because we had hand percussion, we had drums with mallets for the kids, and stuff like that. And basically, 10 minutes turned into 20 minutes, 20 minutes turned into 40 minutes. And after 40 minutes, I read the kids' energy, and they were done. And they had a wonderful time. And we did a drum circle, limited as it was. We all ended up playing rhythms together as a group. Not I teach you a rhythm and you play that rhythm. It's like 1, 2, let's all play. And they understood that. They understood volume up and volume down. And they understood when to stop. And they loved call and response. And so I would offer someone to do a call, and the other kids knew to wait, okay, so they could respond. And I knew I was successful because when I looked up at the caretakers standing around the chair at the end, because what we did is we got quieter and quieter and quieter because I didn't want to hand those kids over all excited to their caretakers. So we just got quieter and quieter and quieter. We all stopped, and I gently removed all the drums from the kids, and we all took a big breath together. And I was wondering to myself, yep, felt good. I wonder how I did. And I looked up at the caretakers, each one standing behind the children. Every single one of them were crying. So I knew I did just fine. Now, it really wasn't me. It was that vibration. My job is to read where the vibration goes, what it does, how they respond, when they're connected, when they're disconnected, and when they're done. That's my job. I facilitate. There is nothing that I teach in my drumming facilitation, drum circle facilitation, to the school teachers, music teachers, kids at risk counselors, corrections officers, psychotherapists, and troublemakers, the drummers. That hasn't already existed, okay? All these tools that you see are basic universal tools that have been around since before written knowledge, okay? It's like, no, I am not the father of the drum circle. God, that was around before we had African rhythms, per se. And there's a lot of, Afro sensibility happening at the moment because it's like, djembe, yay! But in actuality, I travel all around the world all the time. I'll be in Australia Tuesday, okay? And wherever I go, I see these universal principles being applied, universal principles of making music together, applied in many, many different kinds of situations. So it's not just African. It's not just Japanese taiko drumming. It's not just gamelan music from Bali. It is everything. Rhythm is the foundational, universal language. Everyone understands it. All I have to do is learn how to say, 1, 2, let's all play in the proper language. Ich, ni, hajime mashou. And all I have to do is learn how to say, continue to play. Those are the only two things I have to learn how to say in the language of the culture. Everything else, everyone knows. It's in the body language, and it's already built in those universal principles that make a drum circle work. Call and response is not African, but you can trace it right back to Africa. But you can also trace it back to India, back to Russia, back to China, back to Vietnam, back to any Aboriginal culture that started with making music and dance and song using percussion as their base. And so call and response, one of the basic tools. You do it with kids, you do it with adults, everybody knows what it is, okay? Volume up, volume down, yeah. Another simple little tool that helps people listen to each other. So it's a tool that a facilitator uses in relationship to how are we doing. You see, a drum circle facilitator, from my point of view, okay, is not an entertainer. Okay, someone that stands in the middle of the circle and tells everybody what to do is a facilitator, not a facilitator. The idea is to serve that group's true intention, to make that connection. And then through that connection, the music will be made. Yes, if you have the knowledge of what makes a drum circle work, you can pass that knowledge on to the group without being a teacher. I call it teaching without teaching. And you create musical situations that are experiential. And by doing that, the people learn. An example. All the low drums continue to play, and all the big with the boom booms keep going. Everyone else, ready, stop. There's the low drums. Some people, first time in their circle, never played before, okay? And they're going blah, 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 and they're hearing everything around themselves, not necessarily connecting because it's new to them and they're connecting with their drum, and they go, oh my gosh, look at that. And so metaphorically I say, all around the world, they call these drums the mother drum or the grandmother drum. This is the heartbeat of your drum circle community. If you get rhythmically lost, just stop playing and listen for your grandmother. 1, 2, let's all play. And since the grandmother drums are already playing, I just entrain them. And usually I wait for what we call transition points in the music. When things are getting a little bit shaky, like in a hippie thunder drummer circle, if it just gets shaky, it gets shakier and shakier, and then it all falls apart. We call it, professionally, we call it a train wreck. Okay? Well, if these people really are tired of this rhythm and they're ready to bring it to a completion, they don't know how to do it by committee. So I'm the facilitator, and I will help facilitate that. And I'll bring it to a successful closing, and we all go, ah. But sometimes they're tired of the rhythm, but they're not tired. And so I'll step in and help them transition into another rhythm, okay? Or maybe there's a problem in the circle and it needs to be fixed. And there's thousands of kinds of problems, and there's thousands of ways to fix it without making that person or that group that needs fixing wrong. Those are the only 3 reasons why I am in that circle. My belief is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so you're asking about call and response. It's one of those basic tools that have been around for centuries upon eons upon centuries. A simple tool used in musical situations, regardless if the only instruments are pitched drums. It's still music, okay? And these tools are the tools that I've learned from my master teachers. Okay, thank you, Baba, and so many others I could name, to apply to making music and rhythm that already lives within inside of ourselves accessible to ourselves. What is my goal? To help birth. Bottom line, it doesn't matter who you are and what your talent is. Where's your bliss? What is it that's drawing you to that place that is the essence of your happiness? What is it? Where are you the superstar? Where is it that your heart is pulling you to? What service can you give to the community by sharing that bliss? When that happens, you don't have to study. You don't have to go and try to study. You go there. You go there and you do what you need to do to get to where you need to get, to pay your dues, to become so good at what it is that you do that the rest of the community will serve you to serve it. So, yeah, follow your bliss. Follow it. Study it. Do it. Live it. Be it. Be the master of that bliss. And then share your spirit. And you will be a valuable asset. I don't care if it's kazoo playing. You will be a valuable asset to your community. And your community will come running to your doorstep to ask you to share your bliss with them.